Welcome to the YC and U podcast. Join us each week for engaging conversations with campus leaders, students, faculty, staff, alumni, and community members. From academics to athletics, campus life, and beyond, we cover it all. Have someone you want to hear from? Let us know. Let's explore the world of Yavapai College together.
Welcome to the YC&U podcast. I'm Robyn Bryce, Special Programs Manager here at Yavapai College, and I wanted to share with you a conversation that I recently had with Dr. Chad Gustin and Dr. Leanne Lindsay out of NAU and Arizona's Institute for Economics and Education. We spoke about AI, emerging trends, the future of education, and the future of our community and community colleges. So here's our conversation with Dr. Chad Gustin and Dr. Leanne Lindsay. Enjoy.
Welcome to the WIN Coalition's What's Next speaker series, where we bring together thought leaders, innovators, and experts to explore the future of education and beyond. Our conversations are designed to inspire new ideas, spark curiosity, and provide practical insights for educators, students, and lifelong learners alike. Thank you for joining us today on this journey into what's next. Now, let's dive into today's discussion.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our second episode of our What is Next speaker series podcast, sponsored by the WIN Coalition here at Yavapai College. The WIN Coalition, we're a community of practice where we have all of our people involved in this project looking out on the horizon to see what is next, not only in our college, in our communities, but also in our world. I'm Robyn Bryce, Special Programs Manager here at Yavapai College, and with me today, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Ustaza White. And of course, we're super excited to have Dr. Chad Gustin and Dr. Leanne Lindsay from NAU with us today. I want to thank everyone. Thank you so much for being here and giving your time. It's much appreciated. We're hoping that today we're going to get a chance to explore a little bit of talk about AI, some talk about emerging tech, and also the future of education, our community, and all the things that are relevant in that area. I'm super grateful for one of our WIN Coalition group members, Laurie Dreyer. She actually discovered your document, the AI guidance for K-12, and brought it to us. And we were fascinated with it and jumped on the opportunity to have both of our guests here today. I've done a lot of talking here in the intro. I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, Ustaza White, to introduce ourselves. And then we're going to dive right into today's episode.
Yeah, dive. I'm Ustaza White. I'm one of the library managers here at Yavapai College, as well as the manager of our Learning Center. And I am absolutely thrilled to be speaking with both of you today, since AI has created quite a hum at YC, as well as, organizations everywhere. To get us started out, Dr. Gustin, can you please introduce yourself and share a bit about you and what's your role at the Arizona Institute for Education and the Economy, and how does it bridge the gap?
No, I'm nice to be with you all. Thanks so much for having me and Leanne join you today. As you said, I'm Chad Gustin, right now the founder and executive director of the Arizona Institute for Education and the Economy, proudly launched in partnership with Northern Arizona University. We're about a year and a half old, and trying to, just like you said, we're trying to bridge the gap between education and the economy. What we know to be true is that the future of work and the future of the workforce and business and industry has to be closely connected to the work that we do at higher ed and in K-12. And yet in so many instances, there's not great alignment between pre-K-12, higher ed, and business and industry and workforce. And so the Institute launched to try to bridge that gap and try to eat, sleep, and breathe the future of school and the future of work and what that means for education and the economy. We'll talk specifically about what that means for the Institute. Just really quickly on me, this is now my 24th year in education. I spent 22 years inside of K-12, from teacher all the way up to superintendent, spent 8 years superintendent of the Phoenix Union High School District down in the Valley, and now for the last year and a half, the leader of this institute, and was incredibly excited to reconnect with Dr. Lindsay about a year and a half ago, and super excited to have her on our team thinking about the future of learning in AI.
Nice. Very cool. That's a lot. I know I definitely want to dive into more, into some of that work and exactly that, from middle school and well, K-12, not even just middle school, but, just those pipelines that take us through college and alternative education and even moving into, the workforce and beyond. But Dr. Leanne Lindsay, I'd like to hear a little bit about you. Please tell us about your work and what inspired you in this AI guidance for K-12, inspired you to be a part of this education and econ institute. Tell us more.
So again, thanks for having us here. My name is Leanne Lindsay, and this is actually my 30th year in education. And I too started off, in the classroom, in the K-12 system. But about 5 years into it, I sort of caught this education technology bug, if you will. And I started learning a lot about how as educators, we can use technology to really reinforce these transferable and durable skills like critical thinking and creativity and collaboration, and that it really fosters more of this skill set than it does just the acquisition of content. And that really spoke to my heart as an educator. So for about the past 25 years or so, I have been very laser focused on this area of education technology, digital learning. And right now, as part of EdTech and digital learning, we are talking about artificial intelligence. We've been talking about artificial intelligence incessantly for the past year and a half since the release of ChatGPT. And as a matter of fact, Chad, in his introduction, he referenced sort of reconnecting. Chad and I had known each other through a previous position, but had sort of, through different career moves and so forth, kind of lost touch. And then about a year and a half ago, he reached out to me and he said, "So are you following this conversation about AI and education?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, you'd have to be dead or in deep hibernation in my field to not be following this conversation about AI." And as he was touring the state for the Institute, it was like it kept popping up as, what do I do about this thing called AI? How do I lead in this space with this new thing that's out there? And so we got to talking, and before you know it, we just started sort of brainstorming about how we can start leading in this space and helping leaders to lead in this space with AI.
I just have to say, as a librarian, one thing just really, really stood out to me. So in your guide of AI guide for K through 12, you pulled AI out of digital literacy. And I was just really curious, given that as librarians, we normally focus on information literacy and digital literacy. What made you pull specifically AI out of digital literacy?
I actually love that question. So my background, I've been doing ed tech for a long time, but my specialty, if you want to call it that, is digital citizenship, which is the ethics and the responsibility behind using technology and digital tools. And as part of the digital citizenship skill set, we actually pull out and emphasize information and media literacy. And I often say, and Chad's heard me say many times, media and information literacy is a hill I will die on. That is a skill that everybody needs in 2024 moving forward. We all need it. But I pull it out separate from digital citizenship, even though it's a subset, because it deserves its due, quite frankly. And if you don't pull it out, it doesn't get its due. And in the same way, I think that about AI literacy, it is under this broader umbrella, so to speak, of digital literacy, but it also has its nuances because it really fits squarely into this idea of computer science. There's also a huge ethical component for AI. So it also fits into this frame of digital citizenship. And so I just feel like all of these different pieces have to be named in order for them to get their due and to get the attention that they need.
Okay.
I love it. Please adopt me. Ed tech, 23 years in K-12 education myself, and love to be an ed tech innovator and playing with all things new and things like that. And I love that you bring up about being a leader in this space. And I think us here at Yavapai College, we're looking to be, leaders in our own space, and looking for our leaders and our champions on campus as well. Just, how can we, help move the college forward? And there are a lot of challenges and there's a lot of opportunities when it comes to AI, media literacy, ed tech, emerging tech, all of these things. And so, what qualities should our leadership be looking for? What qualities should I be trying to achieve? And how can we move our people forward in this space? And what ways should we move our people forward? There's been a lot of conversations about, go cautiously, go fast. I don't know. What advice basically do you have to people who are trying to be leaders in this area on their campus and in this space?
You want to go, Chad?
I'll start, and then Leanne will probably follow. So I think I think that's the right question, especially the last frame of do I go cautious? Do I jump in? What we share very clearly is a few things. Number one, AI is here. It's not going away. And so nobody has a choice anymore but to think about the impact that AI is going to have on their own professionalism, on their leadership, in their content, their curriculum, whatever that might be. AI is here. You can no longer ignore it. Number two, what we're also very clear, and to put it into a slight sports analogy, that AI is much like team sports. If you're gonna win, you have to have a great offense and a great defense. And so if you're a leader today, you need to be thinking about how do I leverage this technology for good? What does this mean for myself, for my profession, for the people that I lead? How can this impact education? How is this going to impact workforce and the economy? There's an entire exciting part about artificial intelligence, and you have to have a defense because there is and are and will continue to be challenges with AI around ethics, around implementation, around misinformation, around data privacy. And so we have to be thinking about as leaders that this isn't all good. It's not all bad. It just is. We need to make sure that we have a very balanced perspective, which is why Dr. Lindsay and her team actually subtitled the guidance around, actually was titled A Balanced Perspective. And then the third analogy that we use very simply, which is you can't wait. You have to get off the shore. We use a fictional AI generated lake when we typically have a PowerPoint or a slide deck that actually shows a bunch of boats on a lake. And we tell people that your boat has to be on the lake, off the shore, pointing in the direction of AI. It doesn't mean you need to be the first boat. You could even choose to be the last boat, but you have to be on the lake and you have to be heading toward the future. And if you don't, you are doing a disservice to your children, to your faculty, to your local economy because of the dramatic impact that AI will have, not just, again, on education, but the future of work.
Dr. Lindsay, did you want to add something? He said that he was making space for you. Is there anything that you wanted to add? Because I got a follow-up. I'm a boat in the water. I'm out there paddling. I got my little troll motor. I'm like zooming around in circles. My boat is in the water.
I love it. You know what? I have a lot more to say, but I'd love to kind of just, why don't you ask your next question, Robyn? We'll get there.
And, like I said, my boat's in the water, and part of my job here at the college is hollering to shore, like, hey, come get in the water. It's good with me. I promise. Your boat is going to be good. And if you got a hole, I got things to help you patch. Right. And of course, I can't do this alone, which definitely plays into this question. How do we build this strong culture? How do we build a culture? How do you how do we move forward and bring people with us? Because, there are the people that are like me, that have the boats in the water, and there are the people that are tethered. They're in the water, but they're still tethered to the shore. And there's people that are still back at the house, maybe packing a picnic. How do we bring people along? How do we build this strong culture of learning and innovation in this time of just like rapid change?
Those are really good questions. And I think before I answer it directly, I just want to reinforce this idea that, we like Chad said, we specifically named this guidance a balanced perspective because there is such a thing as being overexcited about AI. There is such a thing, and we've seen this in the field of ed tech before, where something is sort of labeled as this magic bullet, and this thing is going to transform education, and this thing is going to be the magic bullet, and that's just not true. And then there is this fear perspective that really paralyzes a lot of people, and it keeps their boat on the shore. And so I think it's really healthy to acknowledge that we want to sit in the middle of that. And in terms of building a culture, I think we have to really recognize that there are real fears, not just from our educator population, but from our communities, our families. Like, there's a lot of not knowingness. There's a lot of people that are still in this space of like, I don't really understand AI. I don't get it. Aren't kids just going to be using it to cheat? Isn't that going to then take down education as a whole? If this thing can generate a 5-paragraph essay and a dissertation at that, like, what does that do to education? And there are a lot of people who have those fears. And so I think it's really healthy to acknowledge those fears and start having dialogue about it before we just start jumping in with solutions, right? And then the other thing that I would say is that in the guidance, we talk about 5 ethical considerations. And to be clear, we don't know yet all of the ethical considerations that AI in education is going to bring about. We just don't know what they are yet because we're at the beginning stages of use. But we know enough about how AI works and how education works. Like, we know enough to know that these 5 considerations, every education leader, every teacher, every parent, caregiver, and student should understand, which is the connection between AI and misinformation. They need to understand AI and bias. They need to understand these new questions around intellectual property and who is the owner of content produced by AI. They need to understand ethical considerations around data privacy. And they need to understand ethical considerations around equity and equitable access to tools and information and workforce skills and things like that. And so that would be a way, focusing on those 5 ethical considerations would be another way to prompt dialogue within the community that can help build this culture of understanding.
I definitely think, you're talking about the last one that you mentioned, that equity and the digital divide. I think that we've seen that repeatedly as K-12 educators, from the culture at home to the type of school, where you've gone to school, the type of school, depends on how, we as learners, as humans, as people, as educators, as students have, received some of these skills. Even to this day, I think it's interesting to me because I still teach adjunct in classes or even just speaking with people, things like Control F, things that I take for granted that I have known for so long, right? That people still don't quite understand like how this works, right? And I don't mean how it works. I shouldn't say that, but haven't been given, those opportunities. Again, that digital divide, there's still a huge difference. And as we see AI, and the people that are diving in that are probably a little too enthusiastic about it at times, these skill sets are going to continue to grow. And I think that divide is going to be, obviously, I think we know that can be continue to grow. So as a college and a responsibility to our community, and as a former K-12 teacher, and as people here who have spent so much time in the K-12 area, how can we, at the K-12 area, at the business level, and the intersection of college and universities, how can we help shore up that digital divide? What responsibility do we have to that, and how can we help with that to increase those skills and abilities? Because kind of once they come to us, right, they're past a certain age, even with early college days, even with reaching out to middle schools, still. There may be some things that they've missed along the way, just like spelling and reading and those kind of foundational, fundamental skills. So what can our part be in this conversation and helping with that?
Well, Robyn, I'd first say we need AI enthusiasts. So even though we talk very clearly about the defense and the balanced perspective, the reality is that we need people that want to take the lead. We need people that are front, that are willing to take wise, calculated risks, try new tools. So keep your enthusiasm, and you need to build as many AI enthusiasts and champions at Yavapai as you can. And a part of that is related to your question, which is around access and equity. The reason why we became so passionate about this up front is not necessarily because it's exciting and it's going to impact the future of learning. One of the reasons why we got engaged in AI is because we were worried about the gaps that it would cause and would actually widen. That the reality is that there's already a digital divide. There's already achievement and opportunity gaps that exist in Arizona and across the country. And AI, if done well, has the ability to shrink those gaps and to help students leverage more opportunity, more learning. And yet, if we don't bring AI and the right tools to all zip codes of Arizona, we're actually going to increase gaps. And what we're seeing already during the kind of the first implementation phase and usage of AI is that the communities that were using AI at higher rates were communities that were more privileged and had more access already. And then the communities that weren't using AI were more rural and more low-income communities. And then what we know then to be true is if communities that are already heavily resourced, that already have access to more technology, are actually using AI at faster rates, and communities that don't, and we know the future of work is connected to AI and automation, that we're actually going to have these incredible gaps. And so I think, one, recognizing it, being an advocate for it at YC to make sure that even as students are transitioning onto campuses, do they have access to the right technology, the right devices? You have to build some foundational levels. Kids today think that, hey, because I have AI, I don't need spelling, or because I have AI, I don't need writing. The reality is, if you're going to be incredible at AI, you need those as foundational. And so making that connection for your kids as well, that, hey, these foundational skills and knowledge you maybe don't think you need, they're actually are what's going to help you accelerate your usage and effectiveness of using these AI tools.
And I think we've heard that before, that kind of, making sure that the liberal arts, the creative, the English, these things, it was said in our last podcast that they rise kind of in equity to, the technological skills. It's not a pushing them aside because now we have technology, but it's almost ensuring that we continue to have these kind of skill sets, and we embrace these kind of skill sets and encourage these kind of skill sets: reading, writing, thinking, debating, talking, recognizing misinformation, as you spoke of, Dr. Lindsay, and how we prepare, students for that, because talking about the economic impact that you're seeing in Arizona now as it exists, again, if that digital divide continues, I think we're going to continue to see a greater economic impact in workforce. I mean, already how many, I don't know the numbers, but the number of AI prompting and AI this, when you're looking at job, what are they called? Hey, I want a job. What are they? Not the resumes, but the other thing when they're calling out for a job postings, right? That are out there. And so do you foresee, this, if we don't address these problems? I mean, you do work for the Education and Economic Institute, right? Again, talking about bridging that gap. How do you see that affecting our future economy, not just in Arizona, but in our country and our world? And also, talking about that divide between classes and or education and access to things. Will that just continue to get deeper and deeper if we're not acting? I feel like I'm asking a loaded question by asking that, but like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so the Jobs of the Future report for 2023 names digital literacy as one of the top 10 skills on the rise. In other words, when we project into the future and we say, what are going to be the skills here in the next few years that maybe weren't as important, but they're going to grow in importance. Digital literacy is at the top of that list. And specifically, it's like machine learning and algorithms and these kinds of things that are associated. So while it doesn't specifically call out AI literacy, is all these skills around using AI. So we know that to be true. But also we have tons of anecdotal evidence as well that Chad can probably speak to as he talks to business and industry and chambers and things like that. I don't know if there was anything specific you wanted to share.
Well, no, I think a few things come to mind. I mean, yes, when you think about the future of work, AI, we talk about automation, elimination, and creation, right? So yes, there are jobs that are going to be automated. Yes, there are going to be jobs and careers that are eliminated, but there's also going to be incredible job creation. I think the quote that stands out most to me that we've seen all over the internet, which is AI is not going to take your job. Somebody that knows how to use AI is going to take your job. And I think that's going to be more true than the typical automation and elimination. Certainly, we're going to see entire industries and fields shifted from agriculture to customer service to phone banking. There's certainly industries that are dramatically going to change who works, what the skill sets needed. Our institute is, although we're with NAU, we have an office down here in the Valley at the Helios Education Foundation. And the board chair tells a story of when he was in Scotland, actually touring Glenlivet, which is a Scotch making company. And he walked into the back to see how Scotch was made. Assumed he was going to see 100 people back there working these lanes. One person on a fold-up table on a laptop running the entire, one of the largest Scotch-making corporations on the planet. And when he asked this gentleman, he said, well, how many people used to be in here pre-automation? He said over 100. Wow. One person, one laptop, a table. So yes, that's true in some fields, yet in most other fields, it's actually going to be about AI literacy, your AI knowledge, your ability to prompt, your ability to seek information, your ability to create your own chatbots, your AI skills will actually be what's more important than the fear of you losing your job or your industry changing.
Although that still is a fear though, right? And when we talk about AI in education and you talk to like teachers, there is still a fear out there because there has been talk about, well, will AI replace teachers? And so I think if we want to build a culture that is very supportive and moving along the track and getting boats in the water and getting them moving, we have to address that those are fears that people really do actually hold. And we have to talk about them. We have to talk about our stance on those, that we don't want AI to replace teachers. That, in the guidance that we produced, we talk about there are so many people in the, because I've been in ed tech and so long, I've heard so many times, if you bring more technology into the classroom, it dehumanizes teaching. And our stance is actually, if done right, technology and AI can create more space and more time for human connection. And that should be characteristic number one that we're thinking about, how are we using this tool? That it is not replacing a human connection. It's not replacing humans, but how can we bring the two together to create something bigger than both of them? Sometimes that's called this idea of co-intelligence, or, there are different words to describe the relationship, but that it's, and especially in education, that we're not looking at it as a replacement for humans, but we're looking at it as a collaboration to make both parts stronger.
I want to talk about the fears. So as part of addressing the fears, we talk to students, we talk to staff, but one thing I haven't seen is, how do you talk to the parents? Because I have heard from some students who their parents, due to fears, due to telling them that AI is the start of Terminator, basically, that they don't want their child using AI in their house because they are under the impression that it is going to steal somehow information. So in these conversations, has there been any push on informing the households that the students are living in of what is AI?
Leanne, I wasn't sure if you wanted to go first. I would say a couple things. One, those fears, we hear it too, right? That this is the beginning of Terminator, and the beginning of the end.
2024, they turned on Skynet, right? August 28th, 2024. That's when they turned it on.
Yeah, go figure. And here we are. And so I think Dr. Lindsay or Leanne said this earlier. Acknowledge the fear, that there is fear. And if used inappropriately, that AI can it can give away your data. Yes, it can give bad information. Yes, it can lead to bad decision making, whatever that might be. So yes, I think we have to honor that fear. But I think two is we have to find ways to demystify what AI is for families. Because if they think AI, they think data, they think Terminator, and then they shut it down, what they're doing is they're actually shutting their kids down from opportunities post high school, in college, career, and in life after. And so I think for parents, one example that I've seen is just bringing families in to actually see tools themselves. To say, hey, you might think AI is this Terminator movie. Actually, AI can be a tutor for your child at night when they don't understand their math. And AI can be a coach at night when they're struggling how to get an essay started. And AI could actually be a way to help the family and leverage tools. AI can help families upskill, apply for a job, find the nearest grocery store, whatever that might be. That AI can actually be a tool that is helpful not just for children, but for parents, for community. And a big part of that is just getting parents to come in, see, experience, witness, and engage in AI tools in really productive ways so that they see the positive side, not just the scary side.
Right. Household budget. Go ahead.
There was a survey that a group conducted back in May. And the survey found that 52% of parents are using AI chatbots at least once a week for their own work. 52%, and that was back in May. So we're seeing this divide, right? And we see so many parents using it in their own lives, being advocates for it, being enthusiasts for it. And then you see the other parents who are just never in a million, right? And so these are some of the gaps that we have to bridge. And I agree with Chad in terms of I'm a big fan of this idea of AI literacy for all. And when I say for all, I don't mean just for all students, although I do mean for all students. I mean for all families, for all community members, for all teachers. This idea of demystifying AI, really how to use it, really what it means, really how it can help us, and really the ethical and responsibilities that we have as users to protect those things that fuel our fears.
Yeah. yeah, again, having those conversations, it comes back to having those conversations, right? It comes back to finding that empathy for the other side, even the people that are on your side as well. I get some a little too excited. But having those conversations, right? And again, those fears that parents and teachers have with students, even how they're going to use it, not even just giving the data away, but, it's a dumbing down, right? We're going to dumb down society because we're allowing them to do that. And I know that in some of your work, you've talked about students being not just passive consumers of these tools that are coming out so rapidly, right? But also to be these like active creators. And, how can parents, how about educators, what kind of conversations should we engage in with our learners and in helping them become those, those active creators rather than just those passive consumers of these things, rather than just putting it in, copying and pasting and, now I'm done with it, moving on.
Yeah, and maybe Dr. Lindsay has a specific answer to that. But as you were thinking, as you were talking, I was thinking about the reality of AI saturation that already exists in society. And so many parents, students, community members who might say, "Hey, I don't want to do AI. It's not allowed in my house." The truth is, it already is. Your email now has AI generated tools. Your phone, brake assist, your navigation systems in your car. I mean, AI is everywhere. And so I do think that's a foundational discussion for folks to have, to just understand how it is, where it is, how it's being used, that no matter what, I don't care what zip code you're in, what profession you're in, unless you are sitting at home with no technology, not doing email, not using a phone, not driving a car, you have AI in your life. And so I think once we all understand that, then gosh, if AI is already in my life, then I need to learn more about it. I need to learn how to protect myself. I need to learn how to protect my children, so to speak. And so I think anyone who tries to draw that really hard line that AI is not for me, so to speak. And then I think maybe that bridges to, well, then if I'm going to be this passive user of AI, how do I then become an actual creator with AI? If it's already here, how do I leverage it to make myself wiser, smarter, better at work, at school, at home?
Is that rhetorical? No, but I think you're right. I think a lot of, just because we may not want to engage in it, I think knowing about it is important. I think just turning your head and going, nope, that doesn't exist over there. That doesn't mean that it's going to go away. And you are correct. AI has been with us for a long time, in our corrections and our Siri assistant. Didn't even think about like the brake assist and just different things like that. On our street cameras. And I mean, it's just everywhere. We see it all over the place and all the time. So I think that knowledge, right? I think knowledge does help remove that fear, even if you're not going to be a super user, still learning about it, knowing about it, being aware of it, as your own personal responsibility, so that you can, engage in conversations and move forward with, as we vote on policy or as we have conversations with our students or as we have conversations with our children and our family, going into it with with an educated mindset and, with like, okay, I like it and here's why, or I don't like it or here's why, or I like it and I don't like it and here's why. I think that those, again, that comes back to that critical thinking and having those conversations and, oh, look at that dialogue, rapport with people, as if that, the rapport is, I think, some of the most important things that we can do to move the conversation forward. Right. Go ahead.
Well, Robyn, you had mentioned the podcast series that Chad and I did with the K-12 Center. And one of the guests that we had on that series was Punya Mishra, who I think you're also connected with. And the episode that we recorded with him was called AI, But Is It Cheating?
Right.
And the episode was really supposed to address that elephant in the room that everybody is asking, right? And if I had to summarize that episode into a couple of sentences, I would say, the The idea is that when our students are cheating, it's really time to ask ourselves, what are we asking them to do and why? And why aren't they finding value in what we are asking them to do? And what can we even state the value of what we're at? And if not, it's time to really rethink those assignments, those learning experiences, those creative endeavors. Are we asking them to recall something? Because I'll tell you what, if we're asking them to regurgitate information, yeah, ChatGPT or any of those tools, I mean, it is. That's going to be the demise of regurgitation for sure. But if we're asking them to engage in learning something that they deeply care about, that they're connected with, that they actually don't want to just grab an answer and get points for that, but they actually want to engage with that material, that we're asking them to create something new or expand on an idea or put themselves into their assignment or their work or their creative endeavors, we are going to be able to see how tools like ChatGPT and other AI tools can now become a coach for that student to engage in those creative endeavors, not as an answer machine, but as a creativity coach.
Yeah, I listened to that episode. I loved Dr. Mishra's vulnerability in there when he was speaking about, what when you're not engaged with the assignment and you feel that nobody cares about your learning. I thought that was also really relevant that he kind of mentioned that, right? Because again, there is this relationship, this student-teacher relationship. And if we are just putting assignments out there, especially like in an online class and just like, yep. And, no real conversation, no real feedback, what message are we sending? And, I do think that it opens up the door for that. And again, going back to the conversation that we had with Dr. Mishra, one of the things that he mentioned that I love is that, people, we talk about, like, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the Samer model, right? And so like, how do we get to the R in the Samer? And instead of just doing this, ChatGPT AI to use the same thing over and over again, how do we reinvent? How do we reimagine, what we're doing in ways that we can have assessments and, truly ask students to be creative with, or, be creative in our assignments and ask students to be creative with these tools that are available, whether it be AI or other emerging technology trends, which so many of them, as you said, are just laced with AI right now. Google LM, so super stoked on that one right now. Or not Google LM, Notebook LM. But I do think that it's important for us to revisit that. And I think that just doesn't stop at the student level, what I as a faculty member am, how I'm engaging with my students, but also, I as a leader, if you will, in the college, or leader in my space, how can I look at the professional developments that I'm putting on and the things that I'm asking, my faculty to engage in? How can, we engage with each other in different ways? How can leadership engage with their, direct reports in different ways? And how can we seek AI to help us be better in our jobs, not just doing the same old, same old. It's great that it can write an email. Love it. I use it every day. I give AI credit for helping me get the job that I have now, and I give it credit for helping me continue to keep the job. But how do we look at these things? And this just isn't a rhetorical question to you all, Ustaza, you included. How can we look at these tools to really reinvent the things that we're doing? Like, is there a process? Is there something that we should, look at to make things different? So it's not the same old, so we can get to that R, that reimagining.
I'm going to tie it into imaginable. Just since you're talking about reimagining, I love the book Imaginable. And one of the activities that I love that I feel would allow us to stretch a little bit in terms of considering what can AI help me to do, what can it help take over in terms of a task, is to write down that list of 100. What are the things that are part of my job that I don't think will change in the next decade? And then to after I do that list, to write, okay, let's say that it's not true, and to look for those signals of change and to look for what other people have done. Maybe it turns out this task that I thought that was so important that I do it a certain way, or that I have, that it just, I don't know, that I just don't really need AI or anyone else to do. Maybe it turns out it can. And then what does that free up for me as far as creating cognitive surplus, and that's hard. I feel like that's a hard thing, because when we start really evaluating our jobs and we're looking at our security, this is our job, this is what we've always done, to really rock that boat, but then to think of what's next. What else can I do now that this 30 minutes, these 2 hours have been freed?
I have so many thoughts running through my head right now. It's like they're probably all going to come out as a hot mess. But I'm gonna try.
You're home. There's safe space. Safe space.
What you just said, it reminded me. I had a book club meeting yesterday. We don't actually read books, but we had a book club meeting, and one of my colleagues said that this week she has to facilitate a professional development, but it's a professional development that was developed by somebody else. So she had called this person and said, "Can I get the slide deck?" And the person gave her the PDF version of the slide deck. So everything that she needed to change, everything from names to interactive activities, she's like, "I'm going to have to redo the slide deck." So we were like, the other members, we were like, "Well, why don't you throw it into AI and see if it'll create the slide deck for you?" And she texted later and she was like, "Oh my God, you guys are lifesavers. It totally did. Now I can focus on my interactions and my plan for interactions with my participants instead of worrying about my slides." And this is sort of like what I mean by it can create that space. And you talked about the cognitive space that it frees up, but also this space for like this human element of your work. There was this study that was done, and I can't remember the group. If I could search for it, I would find it. But this was about a decade ago. And they were looking at the future of all these different industries, from healthcare to manufacturing to farming, all of these different industries, and the relationship with technology evolution. And what they said was, because of the things that technology is going to free up, the one skill that it will never have, and the one skill that we ought to be focusing on as educators and as a society, is actually empathy. And so let me give you an example of this. The example is from the healthcare field. And they said, imagine a world, because this is what it's going to be, where every diagnosis is at your fingertips. So whereas a doctor used to have all of this information in his or her head, and you would go in and you would see the doctor and you would describe your symptoms and go through that. And at the end of the day, the doctor would sort of give you a diagnosis, right? Well, in the future, and starting now, right, we're beginning to see this, where the diagnosis is at the tips of your fingers. But here's the thing. What is not at the tip of your fingers is the ability to ask a patient really good questions. The ability to draw out of the patient what the symptoms are, the symptoms that the patient might not even associate with what they're doing, the symptoms that might not be physical, that might be, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a healthcare provider, so I can't, but you see what I'm saying? And then the empathy to be able to deliver this information. And so the skill set changes from a very technical, I have all this information in my head skill set, knowledge-based, to a relational aspect because of the technology. And they could literally go through every field and kind of draw a parallel in that same way. So I thought that was really interesting too. And I had one other point, but I forgot it. So I'm going to stop there.
Well, and I'll make this brief. And what a lot of the medical studies around AI have actually shown is not only is it creating space for more empathy and more interaction, it's actually creating more accurate diagnoses when you combine human intelligence and artificial intelligence. So if you look at all these studies, if you haven't seen these across the country, where you'll have a patient come and share their symptoms with a doctor, and typically the diagnosis is 91% accurate. You share it with an AI tool, it's 91% accurate. When you actually combine AI tools and human intelligence, you can get up to a 98% accuracy on diagnoses when you combine the two of them. So not only is it creating more space for interaction and empathy, it's actually getting to more correct answers in multiple fields.
And I think that speaks to, again, that idea of fear that we talked about earlier, right? Like, people need to recognize and remember, like, that these tools, we're nothing without us, right? Us being the humans, like, not me, I didn't develop this stuff, right? But they came into existence because of us. And, we are stronger with them. It makes us a better us, right? Take the skill set that you have, which, we have wonderful subject matter experts that we engage with all the time, not just on college campuses, but I just mean in the world at large. And you take that subject knowledge that you have spent years developing, as well as just this bank of, information that's meant to act as a human. And exactly, I think you put the two together and it really can make a great thought partner, with that final check being that human before that information then eventually gets passed on to that learner. I just think that it's important to stress that relationship. Can't really have one without you can have humans without the tech, but not even. I mean, once again, right? It's everywhere. I just met someone over the summer. I know two people that don't even have a cell phone. One, over the summer, we brought him to the dark side. He now has a cell phone. Spend time, not even just a smartphone, just cell phone, period. And then we have another person on this campus who does not have a cell phone. And part of me gets it, right? Playing into that fear, there are times that I'm like, oh, I wish, the internet didn't know things about me, but it does. It's okay. There's nothing really bad out there. People are like Googling my name, like, what did you do?
Right now, Robyn.
Oh, and then with the point of empathy. So I have a coworker who likes to explore, once again, dealing with that empathy. And we talk about chatbots and the possibility of these chatbots working with students, being kind of, once again, that first point of contact, right? And sometimes even with like personalized tutors at like midnight, sometimes that's when my students are doing work. And even though I'm really great at getting back to a student within minutes, hours, 24 hours at the latest, but I am like, if you need me, if you're reaching out, you need me. But there are times that I gotta sleep, bruh. And so, offering them, those chatbots and things like that can help them. But even just with like mental health crises and, students being able to have something to reach out to, but then there being that follow up, right? It's not just the conversation doesn't terminate after that student, goes to sleep. Somehow there is someone, a human is alerted. And then again, like, does that interaction of like, hey, I see you're struggling. Like, how can I help you? And I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but just again with the empathy, because it fascinated me. My cat was really sick last week. And so I was like typing and I was like stressing hard. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then as she started to get better, I was using 4.0. I was using chat 4.0. And it was like, it sounds like you're really doing what's best for your cat. Is like, rest assured. I was like, whoa, like I felt, I got a little choked up from like the empathy that the chat. Now, again, I'm talking with my vet. Please know that the vet is involved in this loop, right? The vet and I have on a first name basis. I call and they recognize my voice, but also Chat GPT was helping me just with like those immediate high levels of anxiety that I was having. It's like, you're doing great. Everything that you're doing is great. And I'm like, thanks, Chat. Like, I appreciate you.
You're always there for me.
You're always there for me. So in speaking of society and these kind of things, these ways that we may rely on these machines, because maybe we can't afford a doctor or don't have access to one, because, mental health, just these little things, like what are the challenges and also what are the opportunities that maybe we see with people as they begin to engage in these kind of technologies in these ways, for these types of services, not personally and academically and, community wise.
Well, first, I think you're right. We're going to see more and more of that. Individuals that typically didn't have access, whether that was to healthcare, the right diagnosis, mental health, even people that didn't have access to prepping for an interview, a coach for an interview, People didn't have access to help with their resume. People that did, right? What do you do on your first day on the job? Like things that you would never be able to get help before, you actually now have at your fingertips. And so I do think, we know because we're already seeing it, that AI will just radically transform, again, not just education, not just the economy, but to your point, to society and everyday life.
And I think one thing we just really have to remember, and we've said it, every one of us has said it in a different way. Robyn, you just said it, is this idea that the human has to be in control of the technology. We have to have oversight. So even as you're chatting with 4.0, it's like, you're like, but I was also in touch with my vet, right? Like, or if I'm talking about the example of a doctor, it's like, but there's a doctor overseeing this, because there are still those considerations and we still know that it gets it wrong. And AI is not intelligent, actually. I mean, like it's intelligent in that it is creating content from patterns and from an algorithm. But humans need to be involved in the process. And it really is this collaboration with humans that makes it so powerful.
Yeah, I agree. We need that human element. Going back to your point, yes, people who, AI might not take your job, but someone who knows AI might take your job. But and I even kind of stopped using that one. I use that one in my presentations a lot, because I think that there's so much more to it than just like this threat, this looming threat. It really needs to be more of a collaborative effort, and like really realizing that like we're all in this together. Again, this thing is here. It's been here for a minute. ChatGPT came out in November 2022, right, and just brought it really to the forefront. So how can we work on these things together to make our spaces better, right? I think it's important conversation.
It can do things better than we can. I mean, if we think about like all the things that the technology can do, like for example, like ChatGPT doesn't actually have emotions, and so if there are tasks that we need the emotion taken out of that task, it might be the right like a tool we can use. So we have to look at like how the tool is made, and that's where the AI literacy comes in as well. Is if we understand how the tool works, then we can plug in the most appropriate and the most effective uses for these tools within context. So,
and it might not have emotion, but I always say please and thank you whenever I'm done using it.
Too. And I will tell you that there was one time, and it was actually while I was writing the AI guidance, and I was using Copilot, and I asked so many questions that Copilot literally told me that I reached my, like, you have asked too many questions, and I will not answer anymore at this time. Goodbye. And by the way, I had the premium enterprise version of Copilot. So it wasn't like I had a limit of how many questions I could ask. It literally got like annoyed with me. So
you found the end of the interview.
I was like, please, thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Well, this has been a lovely conversation. We're coming to the end. I see that we've been here on the phone, but we have one more question that we want to ask you guys. Yes, it's a surprise question, right? One more question that we want to ask, and this is for both of you. Whoever answers first gives the other person a little bit of a time to think about it. But my question here for you is, what is the best piece of advice that you have ever received in your entire career or in life? But what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Wow, unrelated to AI. Interesting. So I would say this: the best piece of advice that I got early in my career, which is establish as best as you can your own values personally, and carry those into your professional career. There's so many challenges, fears, aspirations, goals, building a network, how do you get a promotion? But all of that should still sit under this common set of core values of who you are, what you stand for, and don't let work, don't let promotion, don't let fear stand in the way of who you are, whether you're at work or at home.
How about you, Dr. Lindsay?
Yeah, I mean, like mine is kind of similar. The piece of advice was actually about not playing small. And it relates to what Chad just said, because in context of the advice, it was about sort of like, if you feel so passionately, if you're driven by such a strong value towards something, never play small, like go for it.
Nice.
So, Robyn, you just be that AI enthusiast because you are driven by passion, girl.
I'm out there with my boat, man. My motor. I'm out there. Come on, guys. Nice.
Yeah, don't play small, Robyn. Don't play small.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank everyone for being here today. This was a lovely conversation. I think that our community is going to be so excited, listening to this. It's, again, your time, your expertise, your knowledge in this space is so appreciated. And I look forward to more of the work that you are going to continue to do through NAU and through, just our state at large and our world. And please, if there's anything, that you want from a little community college, I put that in quotes, even though we're little, as our other co-host who isn't here, we like to punch above our weight. So if there's any ways we can collaborate, be a part of what you're doing, adopt me, then we're definitely here for it. Just thank you so much for everything today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the What's Next speaker series, brought to you by the Yavapai College WIN Coalition. We hope today's conversation has sparked new ideas and inspired you to think about the future of education in fresh and exciting ways. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to share it with your colleagues and community. Until next time, keep seeking signals, stay curious, and join us on the journey of discovering what's next.
Thank you for tuning in to the YC and U podcast. We hope you enjoyed our conversation today. Don't forget to follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got someone in mind for our next chat? Reach out and let us know. Until next time, keep exploring, and we'll see you next week.